Welcome to the first lecture from World Climate School. Here you will learn who we are, what we do, why this is important to you, and what we can offer. I hope you will like what you see. Welcome to this introduction to World Climate School and to why you should get involved. My name is Hans-Jørgen Rasmussen. You see my background here. I'm a retired psychologist. In addition, I have 30 years of teaching behind me. I also had a passion for photography and film most of my life. So as soon as I understood the dramatic consequences of climate change, I started teaching others along with my own learning process. And I also started designing my own websites about this. Images and videos can be much more inspiring and motivating than words, so my websites are to a high degree built to inspire through visual media. For a long time, World Climate School was my own personal one-man project. That's no longer the case, and I'm happy to announce that World Climate School is now run by an international core team. And we are working closely with allies and partners in local chapters worldwide. As you see here, we have now established local projects in some of the most vulnerable parts of the world, Asia and Africa, with Pakistan as the most active and energetic projects. The first international chapter was established in Turkey, where I spent a large part of the year. A group of climate-passionate college students and their teachers were the starting point. And this group created the logo and invented the brand World Climate School, handing it over to me and wanting it to go viral. They also created a World Climate School program in Turkish language and started teaching students in other schools in their own area. But it is obvious that the countries most vulnerable are not the countries that contributed most to greenhouse gas emissions. On this map, darker color means higher emissions per capita. And so it is clear that in order to fight climate change, the wealthy countries with a high carbon footprint will have to get involved. And that is why we want to establish World Climate School chapters all over the planet, also in the rich countries. Being a climate warrior is basically a question of passion. It's a question of what turns you on, what you burn for. This passion is needed to keep you going over time. My passions used to be art, especially photography and classical music. But that changed dramatically. Now it's the next generations, here represented by two of the youngest members of my family, Thea and William. Some people think it's about saving the planet. Nope, I don't think so. The planet will take care of itself. But it's definitely a question of saving our civilization, saving the planet as a viable place for humanity. And for us humans, I'm convinced that it's our continued existence that is at stake here. And strangely enough, the majority of people on the planet don't know this, thinking that the danger is far away in time and space and that we have lots of time to find solutions. But it's not. Actually, it's now or never if we want to solve the problems. We only have very few years to reverse the current trends. Now to something different. I believe many of you know Greta Thunberg, but just to be sure, I will introduce you to her. She's the most influential person on the planet in 2019. In August 2018, she was 15 years old and sat in front of the Swedish parliament every school day for 3 weeks as a protest against the lack of action on the climate crisis. She posted what she was doing on Instagram and Twitter, and it soon went viral. On the 8th of September, Greta decided to continue striking every Friday until the Swedish policies provided a safe pathway well under 2 degrees Celsius in accordance with the Paris Agreement. In 2019, she was elected Person of the Year by Time magazine. And now we will have a closer look at what she did, what she accomplished, and why it is important. Greta is not only telling us what we should and should not do, she is living her truth. She does everything she can to keep down her carbon footprint. She doesn't fly. She doesn't drive a car running on carbon-based fuel, and she does not eat meat. When she was going to America to participate in the United Nations Climate Summit, she crossed the Atlantic by sailboat, both ways. At the United Nations Climate Action Summit in New York 2019, she got access to world leaders. She held a speech which was very clear, direct, and highly emotional. We will now first listen to the speech, and afterwards we will take a look at a video showing how her work is being summarized by the year's project.
My message is that we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degrees of global temperature rise, the best odds given by the IPCC, the world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit back on January 1st, 2018. Today, that figure is already down to less than 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Some people say that we should be in school instead. But why should we be studying for a future that soon will be no more, and when no one is doing anything whatsoever to save that future?
Climate change is an existential threat and the most important issue of all. There are no grey areas when it comes to survival. Either we go on as a civilization or we don't.
You say you love your children above all else. and yet you're stealing their future in front of their very eyes. Until you start focusing on what needs to be done, rather than what is politically possible, there is no hope. We cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis.
One of Greta Thunberg's core messages is that our house is on fire, and that we should act accordingly. She created the movement Fridays for Future, and I believe that you have heard about it, or maybe you're even part of it. School children all over the planet striking every Friday for the climate. For example, on March 15, 2019, school strikes urging adults to take responsibility and stop climate change began taking place in over 2,000 cities worldwide. An estimated number of 1.4 million pupils from around the world participated in these events. In later global school strikes, the numbers have been rising, and the children do not stop. Change is coming whether the adults want it or not. And this message says it all. We are all needed. Everyone counts. The older generations were inspired by Greta and Fridays for Future. Extinction rebellion was the result. Grown-ups taking to the street, using non-violent civil disobedience in order to get attention to the fact that our continued existence as a species is at stake here. Many people volunteer to be arrested for this cause. This goes also for many celebrities, here with Jane Fonda as an example. She moved to Washington, D.C. in order to participate in Friday for Future's demonstrations at the White House. And several other famous actors and other celebrities are following her example. Media people and leaders from all parts of the world step forward with dire warnings. Here, as an example, Sir David Attenborough. And here also United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Greta says our house is on fire, and the wildfires in Australia were a clear confirmation of this. And recently, fires in Siberia underlined it once more. Earlier this year, Greta held a speech for World Economic Forum, challenging world business leaders to take leadership in the battle against climate change. And they did listen. Maybe this was her most important message to them. Richer countries need to get down to zero emissions much faster, and then help poorer countries do the same. She was heard and taken seriously, as opposed to the childish and extremely dangerous person on her right-hand side here. So you, my friend, you are important. You can make a difference, and the world needs you. Greta Thunberg, Fridays for Future, and Extinction Rebellion, as well as other upcoming protest movements, are, in my mind, the best reasons for hope we have. They have managed to mobilize where the rest of the Greens have failed. And they stay on track because they know that it's now or never. Every child, every young one, every father and mother, not to mention grandparents and great-grandparents, ought to join them and believe they will, and I believe they will after a while. The only question is whether we succeed in doing this in time. The planet has no patience with us. Therefore, we must help, and education is for me the best way to do this. We need a rapid global awareness raising, a global enlightenment. That is where World Climate School comes in. Most of the text on this slide has already been said. Here I just want to emphasize that it might seem as if the world has forgotten climate change because of COVID-19. But we will soon find out that compared to climate change, Corona will seem like a minor incident. World Climate School is talking to both heads, hearts, and gut feelings. We show the reality of the threats of climate change, but we also focus on hope and positive climate action. We create passionate climate warriors. Just to show you our Teach the Teachers model, throwing a snowball, creating an avalanche. If one person can teach 20, then 20 can teach 400, and 400 can teach 8,000, 8,000 can teach 160,000, and so on. And after only 8 steps, we have reached everybody on this planet. Of course, I know that this is a kind of pyramid game, and it may not work so fast. But even if the growth rate is only much lower, we will get there rapidly. Our mission statement speaks for itself. Inspiring, energizing, enabling, creating teamwork to save our civilization, putting pressure on world leaders to make climate change their #1 priority, using education as a tool for mobilization. And we have some powerful tools in our website, and I will go through them one by one. My Facebook page is updated with climate news on a daily basis. In the Climate Cinema, you will find a collection of more than 400 stimulating and inspiring videos related to the climate challenges and possible solutions. And climatechange.site is a solid, science-based knowledge website, visually enhanced to increase motivation. Finally, World Climate School has its own community website. It's meant for communication, for collaboration across borders, for sharing insights and teaching material, mutual inspiration, and continued learning. It will very soon be upgraded to include our lectures in a professional learning management system. Thank you for following us so far. Now I hope you'll continue by going through the next lectures in this series. There you'll learn a lot about climate change, what it is, what can be done about it, why your contribution is important, what you can and should do. So I look forward to see you in the next lecture.